Hello, I'm back in my corner again today, and today I'm going to talk about some of the things that I did before homesteading, because Mr. J and I only moved to our beautiful home about 2.5 years ago, and before that, what seems like a lifetime ago now, we had other careers. No, I'm not going to talk about his, because that's maybe one for him to do at some point. There's an idea, but I am going to talk about what I did in the 50 plus years leading up to homesteading. It may or may not be of interest, but I'm going to do it anyway because that's the kind of mood I'm in. So when I left school at the tender age of 16, I went to catering college, and I learnt to do hotel catering and institutional management, and I was a rubbish student, is all I can say. At that age, there were far more things in life that were more interesting than studying. Having just spent all those years at school, I found an awful lot more things to do than study for my course. So when I got to the end of the second year, it was a case of I couldn't pass it because my attendance of the lectures just wasn't good enough. But I did come away from that with having learned an awful lot. If I had been there more, I'd have probably learnt more. But I did learn that I didn't want to go into catering full time, and I certainly didn't want to be a hotel manager. So that was, it was a valuable tool, even if it took me 2 years to make that discovery. And anyway, so shortly after that, I did work in a hotel for a while. And it was when I left home and I went and lived in at the hotel, and an absolute blast. And I am still in touch with 3, 4, 5 people from back then, which is amazing. So Anna, Sheila, you may hear me talk about Anna on a fairly regular basis. She's my friend who's moved to Australia, and Sheila still lives fairly close by. Having not seen her for about 30 years, I bumped into her at another job with a completely different hat on, so that was very nice. So after catering college and working in the hotel, I then took 2 or 3 years out when I had my son, and that was a fairly rocky relationship with my son's father, and we were married for just under 2 years. And from that point on, for about the next 15 or 16 years, I then worked with charities and not-for-profit businesses in a whole host of roles. I worked for one organisation on short-term contracts, so 3 and 4 month long contracts, but they just went one after another. But I was working in different places, setting up different projects, troubleshooting and managing problem projects. It was a really, really interesting time. So I did that for a long time. And somewhere in the middle of that, I went back to college, took some A-levels, had my daughter, and went off to do a degree at university. So I started university when my son was 5, and my daughter was 6 weeks old, and it's really not something I recommend. As a single parent, it was not much fun at all. So I struggled through that, and after the degree I carried on working with charities and not-for-profit organisations in things like women's refuges for victims of domestic violence, and I worked with young homeless men, and then I went on to work in community development. And then I had a complete career break and a career change. I got very ill. I had the depression. I've talked about that before. That actually knocked me flat on my back. Well, not literally, but that took me out of work for a good 5 years. And I can't really tell you what I did in that time, because 2 of those years I have pretty much lost completely. I have no idea what I did in that time. Nothing. It's just a blank. But that's okay. It's gone, and I'm out the other side of that period of my life. But so my family survived it. My children coped with me not being the most functioning of parents, and life moves on. then when I started feeling well again, I ran my own business for a while as a retail business. So I got used to marketing and sales, and I really wasn't very good at that. But you know, it was good. It was good enough to give the family a living. And then when I split up with my my second husband, I'm not collecting them, and we've been together a long, long time. Our business was tied together, and at that point he switched off the internet connection to the website with which I ran my business, and that was the end of that. A bit of a blow. Had to pick myself up from that horrid mess, and I'm not going to talk about the messy divorce and things like that, because there's no need to. It's in the past, and we're both in new places, so that's fine. But yeah, so I took a bit of a breather, time out then, and just at the point where I thought I would go back to work, my marital home was sold, and I moved back to live fairly close to my mother, who at that point was fine, well, but quite elderly and quite lonely. So I spent about 18 months with my mum every day, at some point spending a bit of time with her, and that turned out to be very precious time, because whether she knew, we'll never know, but I certainly didn't know that my mum had very aggressive cancer, and she died in December 2012. Which meant I had to have a re-evaluation and rethink again of what I was going to do, and I took a short-term job while I was searching for the next thing that I really, really wanted to do. So this short-term job was as an estate agent, which in America I think they call realtors. Really not my cup of tea. It was heavily sales based. It was very corporate, and very target driven, and that's really not how I work. I'm much more people focused and people results than crunching numbers and figures. So I couldn't get out of there fast enough. And as you know, I wasn't terrible at my job. It wasn't me at all, and well, I'm laughing now, but it wasn't funny at the time. I went for my first day and didn't like it, and on the second day I drove Mr. J to the train station for him to go to work, and as I dropped him off in the train station car park, I burst into tears and said, please don't make me go back there. I don't want to go back to work. I knew I had to, but I really didn't. I just didn't like it, and I'm not work shy. I'm not a work shy person, but I didn't want to be in that environment. So I stuck that out for about 8 months, and in the meantime I was doing lots of networking and lots of talking to other people about potential jobs, and phew. I was then offered what could possibly have been my dream job, which was to set up a fan club for a professional rugby team. Now, they already had an adult fan club. This was a fan club for young people and children, and my remit basically was to develop the club and make it a vibrant and lively fan club for younger people. And it was great. I absolutely loved it. So I worked in the management offices of this professional rugby club. The people around me were just like this really dynamic, lively team. It was brilliant. It was absolutely fantastic. The rugby players were in and out all the time, chatting. The other managements were in and out all the time. It was a really, really good atmosphere to work in, and we were a tight-knit team, and it was a good place to work, and it was really good for me on a personal level. I just developed so many skills, so much confidence, and it was great because all the skills that I've used previously just all came together in that job. And I did that for about 18 months, and then the management structure of that rugby club changed, and my job changed, and once again it became very much sales based, on the phone, sell, and as I've said, that's not me. So I made the somewhat rash and drastic decision to leave that job with nothing to go to, and nowhere to support myself, except for Mr. J just saying, you need to do what's right for you. So that's what I did. That happened pretty much around the same time as he had been made redundant. So there we were at home, living on our savings, which we knew couldn't last very long. And we really needed to find other employment. So Mr. J was frantically searching for a job, and I took a temporary job with the charity that was attached to the rugby club. So I was still around the club and seeing the same people, but a completely different role, and it was with the charity and not with the sales team. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And then the answer is I actually really like working with charities. So, yeah, there we go. So I did that. But during that period, it became really clear that I was unwell. And that was the point at which my thyroid went completely kaplooey. And I've talked about that. When I finished my contract with the charity at the rugby club, I realised just how ill I'd become. And very shortly after that, Mr. J and I found this house, and I became so ill that I was bedbound. And that was the point when we realised that I wasn't going to be going back to work for an employer anytime soon, and that I would create my new career, my new lifestyle, homesteading. So, what was the point of today's discussion? Partly to give you a little bit of an insight into what I did before, but it was also to say that sometimes it's better to get brave and walk away from something, and sometimes it's better just to stick with it, and you'll never know which it was because you can't go back and relive the time. But what you can do is accept the decision you made and make the best of it. And I know that somewhere along the line I made enough right decisions, because here I am enjoying every day. Even the days when I'm down because the depression has got to me, I'm not miserable because of where I am and what I'm doing. And even when I moan about the weather, well, hey, I'm British, and that's part of our cultural heritage, is to moan about the weather, whatever it is. So even when I'm moaning about the weather, even when my back hurts and my knees hurt and my legs hurt and I've got a headache and it's too hot or it's too cold or it's too windy or it's too wet, or all of those things, I absolutely love being here. And I love doing this. I love the security that it's bringing us, and I love the sense of satisfaction. So I hope I haven't bored you rigid with that bit of background info. But I would be really interested to find out what, if you're homesteading now or you're in a career now, please leave a comment below and let me know whether you have done that career or that job all through your life, or whether, like me, you've chopped and changed and done several different careers that have brought you to where you are now. And so, wherever you are in the world and whatever you've got planned for today, I hope it's a good one. And I also hope you'll join me again next time.